Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to the Mansuri Show. I'm your host, Arif Zaffar Mansuri, and today I am at NED Engineering University in Karachi, and it's my privilege to be sitting in the office of Professor Dr. Noman Ahmed. He's a very highly respected educationist, urban planner, and academic. He's currently serving as the acting vice chancellor of NED UET. He is also the dean of the Faculty of Architecture and Sciences. With the international qualifications and decades of impactful work, he's at the forefront of urban planning and development in Pakistan. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you to our show, sir.
Thank you very much, Mansuri sir.
I'd like to ask you that you started your career in Karachi. What inspired you to go into the field of urban planning and architecture?
Well, architecture was my passion. That was the starting discipline from where I began my professional journey. I, in fact, came across a few very interesting books during my higher secondary school of education. And one of that book that still, in fact, resonates in my mind, its title was The Fountainhead. And it was written by a philosopher, Ayn Rand. Mm-hmm. And it was about the life of an extraordinary architect who was being trained somewhere in the United States. And he was somebody who was completely unconventional in his approach. So much so that while studying, he was thrown out of the School of Architecture. Mm-hmm. So his journey in architectural development did not stop there, and he continued to produce some very useful work. In other words, in common language, one could call him as an angry young man. But that became like an inspiration. And few years later, the Pakistan television actually produced a TV drama based upon that work. I think that inspired many other people. Its title was Teesra Kinara. And it was the story of the same architect played very ably by Mr. Rahat Kazmi. So that was the background through which I became interested in architecture. And when I enrolled for my architectural studies back in early 80s, I was in fact taught and mentored by some very able professors during my career. So that not only helped me hone my skills and capacities in the profession of architecture, but also prepared me to venture into those specialization fields that were relevant not only to Karachi and cities in the developing world, but had a possibility of impacting humanity beyond cities. So after acquiring my qualification in architecture, I decided to specialize in city and regional planning, and this is what I do right now.
Professor Ahmed, you studied abroad. You have an M.C.P from Turkey and a Ph.D from UK. What was your biggest takeaway from this study abroad?
Well, I was always inspired to study abroad, obviously, for one reason, that the type of fields I was pursuing and the specialization I was looking towards, those type of studies at that point in time were not available in Pakistan. So I decided to pursue my studies in city planning, firstly at the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, which is a very well-known university, rated very highly in that part of the world and otherwise. And it had a very long-standing tradition of city planning, also derived from the historical development of various Turkish cities and cities in that region. So I was, in fact, supervised by some very able professors there. And I was also able to see that despite being a developing country, Turkey had made several strides in organizing the city planning as well as city development and management that not only made Turkish cities desirable for their own people, but made many of those contexts very, you can say, extraordinary locations for tourism development. Mm-hmm. And we know that Turkey has a very sizable number of international tourists who converge from all across the world and not only experience the extraordinary historical environment in different locations of Turkey, but they also benefit from some very unique type of civic facilities that they not only admire but also take inspirations and try to replicate in their own parts of the world. So that was about Turkey and the countries surrounding Turkey. And then I went on to undertake a postgraduate diploma from United Nations Center for Regional Development that is located in Nagoya, Japan. And I stayed there for a few months, and the whole academic work was supervised by the United Nations University. So that provided me with an opportunity to not only learn about the evolving concepts in city planning, but also engage with the Japanese way of life and the type of traditions and the cultural values that they normally basically keep dear to themselves and continue to benefit from. And that was a huge learning. Sometime later, I went to Harvard University in the United States, and again for a short, I would say, course. There was a Center for Housing and Urban Development Studies at Harvard, where I stayed for some time. And obviously, Harvard is one of the most prestigious institutions across the world. So I had worked previously on a professional level with Harvard and MIT professors, but being there and engaging in a taught course provided me with the opportunity to experience Harvard firsthand and see that what makes that institution truly extraordinary in the overall realm of higher studies. And then eventually I did my Ph.D. from Loughborough University in the United Kingdom, and obviously that provided me with an opportunity to see that how some cutting edge research in the field that I was eventually looking forward for specialization, that was water supply planning, how that type of work was done and cutting edge research was carried out there. So Loughborough was my destination for doctoral studies.
You established, actually you were instrumental in establishing the Department of Architecture and Planning at NED. I'd like to find out what was your motivation or inspiration to establish this faculty.
Well, before coming to NED, I was teaching and conducting research at the Dawood College of Engineering and Technology, which is at that point in time was affiliated with NED University. But then there was always a possibility and in fact an inclusion in the master plan of NED's development, that at some point in time they will have their own architecture department. So the Vice Chancellor of the university at that point in time had broached that idea with me, and we had a few conversations. And after establishing the ground rules as to how we are going to go ahead and what type of facilities we would be able to develop and what kind of niche we will be able to derive, I decided that that was the right time to make that move. So I came to NED back in April 2000 and established an architecture department, and I was also able to, in fact, acquire the support of some of the brightest people around, and many of them joined that department firsthand. Most of my colleagues who joined in the initial years were all very highly qualified, and they also had the aspiration of conducting research in their respective fields of interest, primarily in architecture and urban conservation and urban and regional planning. And that's how we began the journey, initially with a Bachelor of Architecture program, but then we added several other specializations with the passage of time.
I graduated from NED Engineering University and then moved to United States. So I come back to Pakistan often, but when I come back to Karachi, I see that the Karachi is just growing and growing, and it's just humongous city now. And so what are some of the challenges that you face in urban planning for a city such as Karachi, which is so humongous with a very large population?
I think one needs to look at the core raison d'etre of Karachi's creation and development. When it was a small fishing village during the pre-British times, the British identified the extraordinary strategic nature of Karachi, and that made Karachi one of the most sought-after destinations for them to develop it into both a trading post as well as a military anchor, which is what the British did after conquering Karachi in 1839. And from there on, they have been promoting the trade, commerce, and transit-oriented activities in Karachi. The British played a key role in developing the port of Karachi, which still remains the most important component of infrastructure. and a very robust railway system that enabled Karachi connect with the production locations of Sindh, Punjab, and even beyond. The other thing that was extraordinary for Karachi was Karachi's airport. It was one of the first airports that was developed in the subcontinent. So having connected both through land, sea and air means, Karachi's significance as a supporting entity for trade and commerce became very, very visible. And that became one reason that Karachi not only grew immediately after the beginning of 20th century, that process of growth and consolidation continued on. Although at that point in time, Karachi was competing with cities like Bombay or today's Mumbai and other regional ports, but its strategic significance was extraordinary. When Pakistan came into being, obviously Karachi was chosen to be the capital of the new nation. At that point in time, Karachi uniquely was serving purposes of two capitals. It was the capital of Sindh and it was capital of Pakistan.
Of course.
And I must give compliment to the government of Sindh of that time that they were very generous, that they laid out facilities and spaces for the central government to run its state of affairs there. So Karachi was obviously able to absorb functions as well as a sizable population. I can just give you the comparison that when Pakistan came into being, Karachi was an extremely clean and well-organized city of 435,000 people. But in just a matter of 4 years, meaning in 1951 when the census was carried out, it was a city of 1,050,000 people, meaning that it had grown 2.5 times. Now, for any city to withstand a population load of that extent is definitely very challenging. So the government as well as the other stakeholders made efforts to accommodate the functions and also the facilities that was necessary to absorb this population. But that challenge has continued on. While Karachi did not remain the capital of the country in the next few years, its economic development and the potential that it had to offer, that continued onwards. And for that particular reason, sizable number of people not only came from the northern parts of the country, sizable number of people also came from what was then East Pakistan. And it was a very, I would say, dear destination for our brothers from East Pakistan because they thought themselves to be at home while being in Karachi. So somehow they were unhappy when the capital was shifted slightly far away. And I think then various types of discords continued to grow. But despite all of these challenges, Karachi continued to attract both investment as well as a very promising labor force from all across. And these people settled down in different parts of the Karachi. The government authorities continued to provide facilities as best as they could, but obviously the number of incoming population and the facilities provided was slightly mismatching. So there were obviously different tides of informal settlements that started growing up, providing services to people, but at the same time posing new challenges for the city administration. And that's how the complexities around Karachi's affairs began. A big change actually happened in 1971 when the country experienced the Dhaka fall. Large number of Pakistanis returned back and resettled in Karachi. And as a consequence, new settlement challenges emerged for the city administration that they tried their best to grapple with and come up with new solutions.
So you mentioned, of course, a city of this size has, many issues, many problems. One of the issues is the water supply. You have written extensively about the water supply in Karachi. What is the core issue? What is the real problem?
I think there are two fundamental issues. One is the essential quantity of water that is needed by Karachi and the various activities Karachi accommodates. And since Karachi is located in such a way that its major water supply source is more than 100 kilometers away, meaning the Indus source through the Kenja Lake. So that becomes a huge challenge, an engineering challenge that is in fact resolved to a certain extent by the concerned authorities. The other major issue is the overall efficiency of distribution. Karachi has also expanded haphazardly along its informal settlements, and certain types of neighborhoods were laterally added to Karachi's landscape. So, as the new demands emerge, it becomes very challenging for the utility to provide proper buried water supply pipeline service to each and every destination. And that becomes a challenge. And while the authorities try their best to extend beneficial services to all the citizens, it usually becomes challenging because with the changing lifestyle and also affluence added to people's lifestyle, the overall scale of demand is also increasing. So that becomes truly challenging, and I think that in the present times, management of distribution is the core issue that Karachi's water supply experiences. And once we would be able to provide an appropriate solution on that count, I think sizable amount of relief will be experienced by different category of stakeholders, including our industrialists, various types of commercial enterprises, and the other establishments that require water in bulk quantities.
You have worked with the international agencies. You have a lot of experience, looking at the urban planning of, different countries. What can Pakistan learn from other cities, around the globe?
I think one very core issue about cities in Pakistan that continues to haunt us for a very long time is that cities are dependent upon the upper tiers of government for principal decision making. If there is any specific scheme of development that has to be undertaken, that scheme has to be sanctioned either by the provincial government or the federal government. In many parts of the world, the cities are autonomous in their decision making. They basically charge revenue on the services they provide. They tax their consumers through a certain type of protocol. They raise revenue independently, and that's how they act as a kind of a semi-autonomous unit when it comes to governance. Unfortunately, cities in Pakistan, which includes all the cities, they have this dilemma that in the three-tier system of governance that we are subjected to, the overall scale of autonomy that is experienced by cities is very limited. Karachi is a peculiar case because the number of land management agencies that are responsible for managing different neighborhoods, different locations, that is enormous and often fragmented and conflicting. So once we are able to come up with a governance model in which a reasonable amount of autonomy is accorded to the city at the city level, and the city is able to take decisions on its own, I think certain amount of reform can be achieved, and the city will be able to decide as to what is good or bad for it, and will be able to plan accordingly.
What does it mean to be UNESCO Chair on the urban sustainable urban regions?
UNESCO has this very long-standing program of instituting UNESCO chairs around different fields of exploration and application. For us, the creation of a chair around SDG 11 or Sustainable Urban Regions was very vital, because in Karachi there are numerous challenges of sustainability that we come across.
Ahmed, how has it been in your experience as the acting Vice Chancellor? Can you please share that with us?
I think it was a unique experience. Excuse me. Leading a university from the front, and I think no university of the size and stature of NED, I think it's an extraordinary feat. So while there were many important precedents that were laid down by my predecessors, my job was to carry that momentum forward. And in a nutshell, I would say that I'm trying to keep the legacy alive and obviously keep the momentum going so that my predecessor would be able to take it forward to the next level.
What is your vision for the next future of NED?
I think for NED's students, the horizon is very wide. And we are trying to connect NED to as many international institutions as possible. We recently had a very useful engagement with the Toronto Metropolitan University. A very high profile contingent actually landed from that part of the world, and we had some very useful conversations with them. So we are trying to expand our canvas as much as possible, internationalizing our potential and connecting with the outside world so that our students get that benefit and reach out to as many destinations abroad as possible.
What message would you like to send to the students of NED or the young professionals who are watching this program?
I think one very specific observation I would like to share is that we are living in an extremely fast changing world. And some of the perceptions that we carried, say, few years back, they are now falling apart. And there are new opportunities, new challenges shaping us before us. One of them is that previously we used to aspire for career-oriented jobs.
Right.
And we would be happy seeking a government job or a job in a corporate sector. I think there are very few jobs, quote-unquote jobs of typical kind that are going to fall away. The world is now entering into the domain of entrepreneurship. And that has empowered young people utilizing their capacity in more than one ways, be it the development of a startup or offering services through freelancing or developing a career by using digital technology to their advantage. I think the world is vast open. But one needs to learn is first to unlearn what we had actually acquired from the previous century or the perceptions that we inherited from that time. We have to prepare ourselves for the 21st century and beyond. And for that, I think our aspirations and skill set had to be aligned. So my submission to a younger generation would be that you have to look around what's happening and try to learn not only from the classroom and the academic experiences, but also the experiences that surround us. Only then we would be able to align ourselves and offer ourselves as a useful resource to the outside world.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Pleasure.
I appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you watched our conversation with Professor Dr. Noman Ahmed. He's the acting Vice Chancellor of NED Engineering University. I hope you learned a lot. It's a very inspiring, discussion. That's all the time we have. So please keep watching the Mansuri Show, keep listening to the Mansuri Review, and keep reading our newspapers, Pakistan Link and Urdu Link. And please stay connected with Pakistan. Khuda Hafiz.
Parents, show your love with Tahir Halal Kids multivitamin gummies, made in the USA and certified halal. Delicious and packed with essential vitamins, these gummies keep your little ones healthy, happy, and full of energy. No fuss, just fun, because good health should taste great. Tahir Halal. Love, nutrition, and care in every bite.
ताहिर प्रोडक्ट्स आपके खानदान की सेहत के लिए बेहतरीन हलाल विटामिन्स और सप्लीमेंट्स, खालिस, मियारी और फखर के साथ अमेरिका में तैयार करदा.
Kaba Fusion is a pharmacist-owned, patient-focused team of professionals with over 30 years' experience providing intravenous medication to patients in the comfort of their own home. Founded by Dr. Sohail Masood, Kaba Fusion has 7 state-of-the-art pharmacies located across the country. Visit us at kabafusion.com to learn more about the benefits of in-home infusion therapy.